In this video, I want to show you how to use macros, which will make your work in Angel much quicker and much easier. You use macros to insert information into drop boxes, discussion forums, pages, and other components in Angel that have an HTML editor. You create the macros so that you don't have to keyboard identical information over and over again in each separate component. For example, if you have a drop box and you have a set of instructions in that drop box for students and you use identical instructions in all 10 of your drop boxes, instead of keyboarding those instructions into each drop box separately, you can create a macro that will do that for you, and you're keyboarding the information only once into the macro window. Let's go to a drop box. And to create a macro, you must be inside of a drop box or discussion forum or other component for which you want to create a macro and which has an HTML editor. You go to the settings hyperlink, and here is your HTML editor, and you click this button, Insert Edit Macro, and your macro window appears, and this is where you will keyboard the information that will be repeated across drop boxes, discussion forums, or whatever. You can see I already have one macro created in here for my discussion forums. Let's create a macro for the drop box. I want to keyboard instructions in here that I'll use in all of my drop boxes. Click New Macro, give your macro a name. I'm going to call it Dropbox Instructions. You can create categories to help organize your macros, and to do so you would click this button. If you've already created categories, you would simply click this arrow and choose a category. I'm not going to create a category, I'm simply going to create the text that I want to appear in each one of my drop boxes. When you're finished keyboarding your macro text, click Save to save the macro, and I now have two macros in here. If I click OK, that will add the macro to this drop box. If I don't want to add the macro to this drop box, I would simply click Cancel, and that would get me out of the macro window, but my macro is nonetheless saved. When you create macros in a class, you can use them in any component in any class in which you are an editor and which has an HTML editor. So I'm going to click OK so that I can add this macro to the page text for the drop box. And there are my instructions. And for every drop box I create, that's all I have to do. I go to the settings hyperlink for the drop box, the content tab, and I click the Insert Edit Macro button to add this macro. Now, it's not HTML formatted because unfortunately the macro window doesn't have an HTML editor, so you might want to do some formatting after you get your text in here. But it's still significantly easier and faster than keyboarding this information into each separate Dropbox window. When you're finished, you save your Dropbox, and if I look at that Dropbox, I will see my instructions. Let's go to another new Dropbox that I've just added to this class, Settings. And as you can see, there are no instructions in this Dropbox, but I don't have to keyboard them in because I now have a macro to do that for me. I click the Insert Edit Macro button. I choose which macro I want to add. Dropbox Instructions is already highlighted. I click OK, and there are my instructions. And again, I can format them if I choose to. And I save my Dropbox, and that's all there is to it. You can do the same thing with your discussion forum. I have a brand new discussion forum, Settings. My discussion forum has no instructions for students in it, so let's add instructions by using the macro that I created. Insert Edit Macro. This time I want to choose the macro Discussion Forum Instructions, and I click OK, and they appear in the discussion forum directions window, and I save it. Another way to use macros is to create a macro for a comment that you make multiple times to different students. And you would do it this way while you're grading a drop box. You would put your grade in and then create a macro for a comment that you're going to make in many drop boxes. Insert Edit Macro. This time I think I'll create a category for student comments to separate them from my instructions, and I may go back later and create a category for all of my instructions. So let's go to New Macro. The name of my macro will be Good Job. I'll put it in a category called Student Comments. And now I'll put my macro text in here. And you can even add a token so that the comment begins with the student's first name. When you're finished keyboarding the text of your comment, save it. And if you want to add that comment to the Dropbox, choose the category. Good Job is highlighted. Click OK. And you see your token here, but the student will see his or her first name there. And then you save your grade and your comments. And this is what the student sees in the comments box of the Dropbox. He or she sees his or her first name and then the rest of your macro. And every time you grade a Dropbox, you'll have the option of putting that comment in there via a macro. We'll put a grade on this Dropbox. And if we want to write the same comment, we simply click Insert Edit Macro, and we choose the Student Comments category and the Good Job macro and click OK. And now this student will see his first name where that token appears. And you save your comment and your grade, and you're done. If you want to share your macros so that other course members can use them the way you use them, you simply highlight the macro that you want to share and you click the Share button. Next, you choose with whom you want to share your macros by clicking this arrow. You can share with everyone or selected members of your course. Then you choose which courses you want to share the macros in by putting a check mark next to one of these courses in this drop-down list, which shows every single course in which you are a course editor. Remember, you can see and use all of your macros in any course in which you are a course editor, but no one else can use your macros or see your macros unless you choose to share them. If you have course members who are sharing their macros with you so that you can use them, you can see those macros by clicking the Shared Items button. And in the box on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a list of all macros that are being shared with you. In this case, there are no shared macros. To summarize, you can create macros in any Angel component that has this HTML editor, and you can use those macros in any component in Angel that has an HTML editor in any class in which you are a course editor. Macros are a very convenient and easy way to insert information that you use over and over again so that you don't have to keyboard that information every time you use it.